Chapter 3. Callum's mind spun in a whirlwind of confusion as he tried to process everything he'd learned. While he struggled to make sense of all that had happened since the battle in Tectan, his trio of acquaintances insisted he get back on his feet and move around. The sheet draped around his waist was discarded, replaced by a simple shirt and a pair of pants made from a stiff, coarse fabric. He was unsteady at first, due to a combination of days of inactivity and the required adjustment period regarding his artificial parts. As Vlad led him around the laboratory, Zedek prattled on about his research and the technological advances allowing him to integrate the cybernetic prosthetics with his body. Much of the talk about sensors and carbon-based materials were beyond his comprehension, yet he marveled at how quickly he was able to adapt to his new state. The synthetic muscles moved his limbs and flexed his joints exactly like the biological ones he'd lost. He could touch the tip of his nose with his left index finger when Zedek instructed him to do so. Following that, he was able to pick up and manipulate various tools. Standing, crouching, and jumping became second nature in less than an hour's time. Just as his engineered appendages were identical in function to his original ones, the inky material covering half his body felt like his natural skin. He could touch and feel touch in return. All the outside stimuli they introduced to him were met with appropriate reactions. "How do you feel?" Zedek asked. He considered the question. "Physically? Fine. The rest will catch up eventually, I'm sure." "Mm-hmm." He made a non-committal noise, choosing not to argue. Zedek turned to his assistant. "How do his vitals look?" "Everything within the expected range." Vlad glanced up from the notes on his tablet. "We could keep the subject here one more night if you want." "I have a name, and I can hear you," Callum said. "Right. Sorry." Vlad tapped the edge of the device with his stylus. I guess I got used to monitoring you when you weren't awake." "I'm sure after everything he's been through, Callum wouldn't mind some time to himself," Zedek said. "Ro, why don't you show our newest recruit to his quarters? Vlad and I have some data to go over." "Sure," she said. "Come on. The residential wing is this way." Callum followed her out of the laboratory. The underground hallways were illuminated by glowing panels recessed into the walls. Cool air circulated through the ventilation system. He felt neither trepidation nor a sense of coziness as they moved through the corridors, but he didn't find the facility unpleasant. "So, you were fighting for Tectan, huh?" Ro's voice disrupted his thoughts. "I guess there's something endearing about an underdog." "It's my country," he said. "I was defending my home." "Right." Callum looked her over. Her dark brown hair, cut short and arranged in messy spikes, and amber eyes gave no hints as to her place of origin. From her pale skin, he surmised she had not seen the sun for herself in quite some time. A series of metallic studs ascended the rims of both her ears. He couldn't tell if the piercings had some sort of cultural significance or were merely for aesthetic purposes. "Where are you originally from?" he asked, trying to make casual small talk and satisfy his curiosity. "If I tell you I was born in Palavia, are you going to try to kill me?" Her candor surprised him, though he couldn't deny it was a fair question. "No." "Good," she laughed. "What Zedek told you was the truth. No one down here gives a shit about the area of land 3 different nations are slaughtering each other over, trying to prove who's the smartest and the strongest." Her opinion clashed with the pride he'd felt during his service. "But the Midnight Scorpions exploit it, don't they?" "You?" "They make it easy for us." Ro led him around a corner and changed the subject. "So, Callum, do people ever call you Cal?" "On occasion." He shrugged. "Never was too crazy about the nickname." "Aw, not even from Meta?" she asked. He stopped walking and stared at her. Sorry. Too soon, I know. How did you know? He said, swallowing. Did I know what? How did you know her name? She poked his wrist. We know everything about you, remember? Ticking items off on her finger, she recited a list. Callum Renwick, 27 years old, born in Coral City to Eleanor and Carlo Renwick, both deceased. Enlisted at age 21, married Meta Crow not long after. One child, whose birth was registered in CERN 4 years ago. His mouth pressed into a straight line. Very impressive. After the basic details come a list of every military toilet you ever crapped in. Shall I continue? I'm surprised the chip doesn't include my favorite color or the names of my childhood pets. The cutoff has to be somewhere. But hey, we got lucky. She smirked. If it had been the other side of your body to be blown to bits, we would have had to wait for you to wake up to ask all those questions. Callum narrowed his eyes. So glad my injuries didn't inconvenience you too much. Didn't bother me. I'm not the one who had to piece you back together. My duties where you're concerned start tomorrow. Rose stopped in front of a plain brown door. Here we are, the finest accommodations the Scorpions have to offer. She pushed it open and ran her hand along a panel on the wall. Lights suspended from the ceiling flickered. Callum stepped inside to look around. The room was small and sparsely furnished. A bed stood in the corner, topped with a pillow and a blue-striped blanket. 2 rickety chairs flanked a round table in the opposite corner, and a wooden dresser towered against the wall. A second door led to what he presumed was a washroom. If the rest of the organization's rooms looked as bare as his, he didn't think they were expected to spend much time in their private quarters. I'll come collect you in the morning, Rose said. We'll grab a quick bite to eat and then get right to work. Work? She crossed her arms, though her amused expression belied any annoyance. You didn't think Zedek went through all that trouble to save you and equip you with all those fancy parts for fun, did you? He exhaled. I suppose not. Good. Then we'll get started bright and early. She frowned, and her voice took on a more serious tone for the first time. Look, Callum, Averting her gaze from his, she scratched her head. I'm sorry about your family, and your home, and your friends in the army. Yeah. Thank you. I think nearly everyone down here has lost someone or something close to them, she said. Don't expect to hear about it, though. This isn't a forum for sharing sob stories. Also, she furtively glanced up and down the corridor. Callum copied her actions and saw nothing out of place. What? She took a step closer to him, close enough so their bodies touched. In case you thought it was curious how they turned you loose so soon, assuming you'd be okay on your own. Steadying herself with a hand on his shoulder, she stood on her tips of her toes and leaned forward. Her lips brushed the edge of his ear, and her whisper was barely audible. Don't try anything stupid. They're watching. Before he could respond, she was halfway down the hallway. Good night, she called over her shoulder. Try to get some sleep. Callum closed the door. He finally had a moment to himself, and he didn't know what to do with it. There was so much to process, much to grieve. His curiosity won out over everything else. He crossed the room to the second door and peered around it. The object he sought lay inside, a mirror. He didn't recognize the face staring back at him. Disgusted, yet fascinated, he entered the washroom and took a closer look. If he turned his head to one side, The reflection of his tanned skin and sun-bleached hair showed no signs of him being anything less than an average human male. From any other position, though, there was no ignoring the angular plates comprising his chin and left cheek. The socket that had once held his eye was now filled with a glowing scarlet orb. When he closed his remaining eye, he noted no changes in his vision. He poked at the mechanical ball and flinched at the intrusion of his finger. The seamless integration of the cybernetic parts continued to amaze him. Alone in the washroom, Callum stripped off his clothing. The small square mirror hanging above the sink didn't reveal his entire body, but he was able to examine himself without its aid. The flexible black material wrapped around the left side of his torso, stopping shy of his navel. It fused with his skin along the line of his sternum, covering his chest and shoulder before flowing into his robotic arm. Closer inspection revealed the downy blonde hair that once lined his pecs and abdomen had been removed. His heart pounded with anxiety and he looked further down. Reaching a hand between his legs, he breathed a sigh of relief when he found his penis and testicles intact, having escaped any injury. Callum's gaze returned to the mirror. The more he watched his reflection, the less it resembled him. Full acceptance would come in time. He admitted Zedek had been correct. He was lucky to be alive, and he had to make the best out of his unexpected situation. He located a toothbrush and some toothpaste in a cabinet. With the supplies provided for him, he repeated his usual nightly routine and took comfort in it. He used the toilet, washed his face and hands, and returned to the main room. Skimming his hand over the panel Roe had used, he extinguished the light. Despite the lack of illumination, he could still see every specific detail of the furniture. Interesting, he thought as he lay down on the bed. In the darkness, the day's trauma resurfaced. He couldn't escape the images of Meta and Lilia floating through his mind. Regardless of how hard he tried to push aside the horrific scenarios, thoughts of their deaths plagued him. Their smiles, their energy, their potential. Everything had been ripped away in an instant. Were they fortunate enough to die quickly? Or were their last moments filled with terror and agony? Did they wonder when he was going to come save them? Why had their lives been taken and his spared? Tears dripped from his remaining eye, rolling down his cheek to the pillow below. He had failed them. The assumption they were safe in CERN had been incorrect, and they all paid for their mistake dearly. Grief gripped his chest, and his sobs echoed off the unfamiliar walls. When his sorrow exhausted him, he drifted into a fitful sleep, haunted by the dreams of all he had lost.